Alright, my darlings, you know, I've talked about a lot of classic cartoons on my channel, and for better or for worse, and while they may not turn out great, a lot of them have been remade or rebooted in some way, shape or form in the modern day. In the past few years, we've seen new versions of Danger Mouse, The Clangers, TMNT, DuckTales, Thunderbirds, and way too many more to count. All of these cartoons have proved that their popularity and fan bases are strong enough to be made new in the modern day. But there are a lot of cartoons out there that deserve the same treatment, and for one reason or another, they're just kind of forgotten about in the modern day. And, well, you saw the title of this video, that's what we're here to discuss today. So let's not waste any more time. This is the top 10 classic cartoons that need to be remade. Number 10. The Animals of Farthing Wood. You all saw this one coming, so might as well get it out of the way first things first. Plus, it gives me a chance to show off my brand new cane. Pretty cool, right?
I'm your friend.
Shut up, Kane! Anyway, Farthing Wood was a very unique show for its time, as I've talked about over the past 4 years on my channel, but it's undeniable that the limitations of the technology and the budget of the time meant that the show wasn't really reaching its full potential. As much as I loved the show, there were many things about it that I thought weren't done at their best, and that's why I would love to see it be reimagined for the modern day. Of course, there were many things in the 90s that you could get away with that you can't show now, like, well, this. Oh, how I do love showing you that clip. But there are still ways of getting around that. Shows like Avatar, Steven Universe, and even a couple more we'll be mentioning on this list later on, have shown you can get away with more adult content in kids shows, just so long as you're clever about how you do it. But regardless of that, I want to see this series come back just so I can see how they would do it with modern techniques. Granted, it's almost impossible that the beautiful hand-drawn style of the original show would be recreated today due to the time and cost of having to do that, and it would be more likely done through digital animation or, God forbid, CGI animation. But if they were to do it properly, like having the animals look like the actual in-life animals in realistic environments, then I feel it could be done really well, and that would be great to see what kind of voices they get for the characters. Who knows, maybe they'll get the actual Al Pacino to do Scarface this time. Plus it would be good to see how you can get some of the material that wasn't adapted into the original series into a new one, like The Siege of Farthing Wood and The Adventure Begins. Granted, that might be a bit too dark to adapt, but still, it's worth a try. Plus, with the new upcoming Netflix remake of Watership Down, I could see a crossover happening there, which would be great just to see the Watership Down rabbits compare their lifestyle choice with the religious beliefs of El Rah-Ra and the Great Frith, contrasting with the Farthing Wood gang's Marxist beliefs about the oath and all animals stick together. It'll almost be like the next version of Animal Farm, only with less alcohol and donkeys. Though that would still be pretty cool. To quote a line that was often used in the show, "Farthing Wood animals forever!" So why don't you bring the show back to live up to that motto, eh? Number 9. Duckula and Darkwing Duck.
Let's get dangerous.
I decided to put these two together since their placement in animation history are actually pretty similar. Both were spin-off shows of a much bigger cartoon series, with Duckula being a spin-off of Danger Mouse and Darkwing Duck being a spin-off of DuckTales. Both took a minor character from both those shows and made them the main character. Both are some of the funniest cartoons of their generation, and, well, what do you think the last comparison point would be? Yep, you pretty much got it right there. I've talked about Duckula before in my Danger Mouse review, a situational comedy about a vegetarian vampire duck and his family going around and doing whatever they please and having a load of misadventurous fun along the way, with the great voice of David Jason along for the ride as the title character. Darkwing Duck is actually not too dissimilar, involving a goofy yet surprisingly skilled superhero duck going around his home city fighting crime with the help of his family, with the great voice of Jim Cummings along for the ride as well with the main character. I would love to see the original Duckula and Darkwing Duck have a voice-off. Or, more specifically, I'd love to see Jim Cummings and David Jason doing a voice battle. Though I think Jim Cummings would win if he ever started doing the Robotnik voice in that fight.
Did you say you had prisoners.
Regardless, with both of these shows' original genesis having received remakes and one having made a cameo in said remake, I feel like it's time for the mighty Mallard Marauder and the Quacktastic Crime Fighter to make a comeback into their own solo shows. I don't know who they get to be the voice of Duckula, since David Jason's a bit too old right now, and Rasmus Hardiker, while he did do a decent job in Danger Mouse of playing Duckula, I feel like someone else could do a bit of a better job. Maybe someone like, oh I don't know, Matt Smith from Doctor Who. I feel he'd do a great job, but if we had to stick with Hardiker, a bit of fiddling and voice training and he could make a great Duckula. As for Darkwing, I'm sorry, but you can't have anyone else but Old Cummings. He cannot be replaced by anybody. No one can outdo the guy who brought life to Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Fat Cat the Tasmanian Devil, and about half the voices in Skyrim. Just try to replace him and he'll throw down into oblivion. Then again, if Matt Smith becomes Duckula, then that means they could potentially do a crossover with DuckTales because David Tennant is now playing Scrooge McDuck. Even though I think Peter Capaldi would have made a better choice. Come on, am I the only one who thinks he would have been a better Scrooge McDuck? I can't be the only one that thinks that. Please, acknowledge that I have someone else out there who thinks the same as me. They may obliterate the bread supplies and procreate through gang rape. Seriously, don't look it up, you'll be traumatized for life. But we still need these classic quackers back. Make it happen, BBC and Disney, come on. Number 8. G.I. Joe! It surprises me that with all the mediocre G.I. Joe movies by Michael Bay that have been made over the years, we've never had a new G.I. Joe series. I mean, yeah, we had G.I. Joe Renegade, but that only lasted about half a year. And how depressing's that? G.I. Joe only lasts a few months with a new show, and yet the Kardashians and Love Island get several series and spin-offs? And we wonder why everyone in the world is miserable right now. Maybe it's due to the sensitivity we have towards terrorism these days and don't want to have shows like this come across as propaganda. But come on, who could take a group of terrorists consisting of a reject from Halo Reach, Colossus's lanky brother, and a smoking hot Caucasian woman with an unidentified accent seriously compared to guys like Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Besides, with the misery we've all been going through in the 2010s, we could use a bit of 80s style nonsense to give us all a boost. Plus, they could go even deeper with the satire by having the team's commander be a fat, stupid, racist idiot with a dumb haircut and a fake tan that they ignore on every mission and just do what they want to and win the day regardless. I don't think there needs to be any guesses for who I'm thinking of in that allegory. With the classic Cowboys and Indians dynamic with a group of anti-terrorist task forces which include an actual Native American and a professional wrestler against ridiculously over-the-top cyber-terrorist gangs named after a venomous reptile, is a story that any boy, and even some girls, can enjoy and identify with. And in a world where everything seems to exist in areas of grey, sometimes it's just nice to have some black and white heroes and villains and a real cathartic and primal change that we all need in this mad, confusing world. While I'm always a fan of smart, intelligent and self-aware cartoons for kids, I feel like having something more over-the-top and insane is always welcome. Hell, I grew up on stuff like that, and so do kids now with shows like SpongeBob and Adventure Time, so why not liven those kinds of shows up with some guns, jeeps, helicopters and one-dimensional heroes and villains? You don't have to be intelligent to be entertaining. Now you know, and knowing is an overused catchphrase. Number 7. Animaniacs. I know that many of the people who were involved in Animaniacs have moved on to bring their talent to us in other shows, but none of those shows have had the splendour of fantastic writing, comedic timing and animation of the Warners, the Goodfeathers, Slappy Squirrel, and of course Pinky and the Brain. I feel like Animaniacs was the peak of cartoons in the late 20th century. Nothing could top that, with maybe the exception of Batman the Animated Series, but at the same time those were two completely different shows, and in terms of comedy you couldn't get much funnier than this, with such amazing characters, jokes, memorable songs and amazingly well done educational moments. This is a show that deserves to be brought back for a new generation to watch jokes like this.
Wait till they get to the creamy filling.
Buster and Babs Bunny. No relation.
Let's hope not. It's a children's show.
Promise me something, Pinky. Never breed.
I'll try.
I am Ludwig von Beethoven, world famous composer and pianist.
You're a what?
A pianist.
I think we've heard enough out of you.
And the kids will have no idea what they mean while the parents cringe uncomfortably next to them.
Sigmund Freud would have had a field day with you.
That's probably the only thing that would be tricky in this show, all the adult jokes. I mean, it still amazes me that a show for kids was able to get away with a hypersexualized mink and a 1950s style nurse, countless sex references, and even a handful of alcohol and drug references could still be shown in primetime children's television. Ah, the blissful ignorance of the 90s. Despite that speed bump, I still think this show is worth revisiting. Most of the voice actors are still working to this day, and so are the creators. With the exception of the late Richard Stone, of course, which is quite a tragedy, so we won't get any of that great catchy music anymore.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too.
But hey, it doesn't mean they can't reuse some of the old ones. We need a show like this back on TV. I mean, our talking sponges, stretchy dogs, gem-powered children, and mutant turtles are nothing on a trio of monochromatic puppies and a mouse duo trying to take over the world.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Brain. But if you replace the P with an O, my name would be Oinky, wouldn't it?
Number 6. Tom and Jerry. While Tom and Jerry are still technically around, they've been watered down so much from their original incarnations that they might as well be called Foster's original Thomas and Jeremy. Tom and Jerry were the masters of silent slapstick alongside the Coyote and the Roadrunner, with barely any words spoken throughout their entire career, with the exception of one piece of Tom and Jerry history that we all must purge from our collective memories.
We've got to have money.
These two were the greatest examples of how you can have brilliant characters, comedy and stories within 5 minutes and not have any dialogue, which is essentially the pinnacle of visual storytelling. That and a cat being mutilated in about 1,000 different ways definitely helps as well, particularly for me since I want to do that to any cat that I see. You can boo me if you want to, but I just cannot stand the little snidey bastards. You can enjoy your cats, but I'm a dog person myself. Go dogs. The last 2 official Tom and Jerry cartoons were Tom and Jerry Kids in the 90s, which was made entertaining by the presence of a few Tex Avery characters and the late great Phil Hartman.
Oops! They're not in the soup, they're in the drink! That's what on me. Well, no cars, no race, and no race, no prize money.
Hello, I'm actor Troy McClure. You kids might remember me from such educational films as Lead Paint, Delicious but Deadly, and Here Comes the Metric System,
and Tom and Jerry Tales in the 2000s. And like most revivals of Hanna-Barbera characters in modern shows, they weren't bad, but they didn't feel like Tom and Jerry. With the exception of any of those Scooby-Doo shows from the 2000s, you can't go wrong with any one of those. And since then, all we've seen them in is typical shoveled trite that WB shoves out, with Tom and Jerry in things like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Wizard of Oz, and Robin Hood. Then again, Scooby-Doo kind of has it a bit worse, with appearing in movies with the WWE and Kiss, which yeah, big stamps for not selling out right there.
What do you get
with a labeled rehash? Just one giant pile of ass.
The kings of cartoon violence are ready to take back their throne, and if you deny them, then may a million woes and about the same amount of TNT, gravel and iron be on your head. Same goes for whatever idiot greenlit this movie.
Just one giant pile of ass.
Number 5. Futurama. While Futurama isn't technically gone, I would like to see it come back properly, and yeah, Rick and Morty has kinda stolen the spotlight from them. You still can't beat the amazing writing of Matt Groening and David X. Cohen. Their stories and characters have managed to plough through 2 cancellations and being overshadowed by their yellow neighbours, but with more jokes, sci-fi jargon, meta-humour and brilliant scenarios to fill an average episode of Red Dwarf, Futurama is a show that we need in this day and age. Rick and Morty is awesome, but it's hard for some people to get into it, with its very unrehearsed style of voice acting, lurid and admittedly sometimes disturbing subject matters, and rather gross animation. Futurama is a show that can appeal to almost anybody, and we need more shows like that. With shows like Family Guy trying to get increasingly foul and horrid with each successive season, the frequently entertaining life and times of the Planet Express crew managed to hit just that right level of unique, but also agreeable that Fox Animation sector desperately needs right now. I mean, come on, the network that's owned by the most evil man on the planet that gave us shows like Alan Gregory, the Napoleon Dynamite cartoon, and Son of Zorn really needs something that is both agreeable, funny, and solid, especially since the few cartoons that they have are being sucked drier than Rupert Murdoch's heart. Yes, Family Guy, and I'm looking at you when I say that. Regardless, we need to see Fry, Bender, Leela, Zoidberg, the Professor, and the rest of the gang come back into New York and bring that classic future sci-fi satire that only they can bring us. Number 4. Beavis and Butthead.
The fuck?
While admittedly I can understand why some people can't get into Beavis and Butthead, much like Rick and Morty, to an outside observer who doesn't quite get it, it could seem like the most mindless, brainless thing ever. But again, like Rick and Morty, it's a lot smarter than it looks, especially when it comes to the classic music video reaction side of the show. Though doing that in the modern day might be a bit harder now, right, fine brothers? Regardless, I feel like the cynical observational comedy of B&B is really needed in today's world, especially with all these horrendous reality TV shows and music videos trying too hard to shock. Beavis and Butthead's hilarious commentary would be just what today's media needs for people like me who can't stand to be in the same room as shit like that. We need more direct satire in our media these days, and these two meatheads are just the two to bring it to us. Plus, if they brought back Beavis and Butthead, they could also potentially bring back Daria. That got your attention, didn't it, Tumblr? While their creators are busy draining every little drop of life out of their newest show, King of the Hill, I feel like if we let that show go away for a bit and replace it with a new Beavis and Butthead, then it would be awesome. Hell, we could even go more creative than that and have them be older versions of themselves, but still the same mindless meatheads they've always been. How funny would that be to see? Regardless of how they bring it back, I'd be happy to see it come back in any way, so long as it matched that same hilarity and cynical observational humour that the original did. And I'd be happy to see it back, if only so that we can see the great Cornholio again.
I am Cornholio. I need picada for my bunghole.
Number 3. Superman, the animated series. With DC messing up Superman in every conceivable way these days, that's right, I said it, we often forget the very important fact that Superman is awesome. With so much focus on Batman these days, who, don't get me wrong, is an awesome superhero, but Superman is the superhero. He's the first, the most iconic and the most inspirational superhero that there has ever been. And in his best, Superman represents the power and strength of the human race, and the greatness it can do when it uses it for all the right reasons. So in short, we need a new Superman TV series again to show off the exemplary greatness that the Man of Steel represents. And considering that his last TV appearance was in Krypto the Superdog. This is the last of Krypton's TV legacy, people. We can't let Kal-El go out like this. We need something more like the Superman animated series we saw in the 90s. And while yes, those cartoons have essentially become the DC animated universe, which is still going on even to this day, they only exist in direct-to-DVD movies and occasional one-night showings in cinemas. I want to see the red, yellow and blue on the small screen without having to pay $9.99 for it first. Unless it's on Netflix, that could actually be a pretty good compromise. But still, the amazing exploits of the hero that, without his existence, we certainly wouldn't have the awesome Marvel movies we have today, which is a bit ironic considering Superman's owned by a different company, but oh well. We need to see Clark Kent and his silly glasses back on TV again. Come on, Warner Brothers, you know you want to. Number 2. Paddington Bear. How has nobody brought back this show yet? With the fantastic movie reboot and its upcoming sequel, it's time to bring back the marmalade-eating Peruvian bear onto our TV screens. Whether as a cartoon or a live-action spin-off of the movie, I think that something that pure, innocent and down-to-earth will be greatly welcomed in today's mad world. It's clear that Paddington has given companies the idea that unthreatening and soft, cuddly animals are worth big bucks nowadays. Since that movie's release, we've been seeing tons of movies trying to steal its thunder, including the company that will try anything to get out of bankruptcy, Sony, with their own version of the upcoming Peter Rabbit movie, with James Corden in the title role. Okay, Corden may be a fine actor, and I'm sure he's a lovely guy in person, but he's been way overexposed of late, and with taking the great Craig Ferguson's place on The Late Late Show and making it far too generalised and unthreatening, and sticking his finger into every pie he can with appearing in Doctor Who, The Emoji Movie, and Trolls, and using his worst choice of performance for all of them, the overly happy childlike comic foil, and exploiting his Hollywood connections and social media traction to grow more and more popular. Yeah, there's a reason to have an OBE right there.
Just one giant pile of ass.
Oh, when will we get the old Smithy James Corden back? Regardless, Paddington is one of our greatest literary institutions here in the UK, and his exploits would be great to see on a channel like CBeebies. We need the little bear in the big red hat on the format that made him a beloved icon. That, or we could get him in the Marmite adverts again, that would be cool. I think either project would be good to also give to Peter Capaldi, since he's basically going to be on the dole after Christmas. And now it's time to talk about the number one, but before that, some honourable mentions. Invader Zim. As much as I'd love to see this show come back, I have to be honest, I don't think it will ever happen, given the fact that this show had a pretty bad reputation from parents and censors at the time it was cancelled. But anything's possible, so maybe we might see it come back someday. Wacky Races and Catch the Pigeon. I feel like the best kind of cartoon comedy there is chase or race-based comedy, like the Roadrunner cartoons. And Wacky Races and Catch the Pigeon with the classic Dick Dastardly and Muttley are exemplary forms of that kind of humour, and we need it back. Top Cat. After 2 horrible movie reboots, it's time that the real TC came back and brought his New York Moxie in full force. The Silver Brumby. One of the many cartoon dramas about animals that came around about the same time as Farthing Wood, and while not having as much of a fan base as that show, I feel it could still work in the modern day. I mean, people love horses nowadays, don't they? Pingu. While I've always had issues with Pingu being a tad dark and grisly for really young kids' TV, it is still a great show and worthy of a comeback, if just for the great stop-motion animation. Trumpton. Same reason with this one too, though it might be a bit tasteless to bring this one back as its creator died 2 years ago. But just showing some reruns I feel is needed to be done in a tribute.
It's great to be the president. Bully, shout, abuse and lie, I'm in my element.
Popeye. Great slapstick that encourages kids to eat veggies. Who could argue with that? Well, evidently Sony, since they canned his new movie. Come on, Sony, you really think that would make you lose money? Care Bears. I'm not the biggest fan of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but it is a very clever way of taking a franchise that was mostly just child-friendly kids girl fluff in the 80s and turning it into something funny and imaginative. So why not do the same with their biggest rival, the Care Bears? I could totally see that working. And the Care Bears have always had more story and lore than My Little Pony anyway, so I think it's totally serviceable. And now for my number one choice of a classic cartoon that needs a new TV revival. What is it, you may ask? Well, let us see. Number 1. Peanuts. One of my earliest memories was watching the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show on BBC Two in the late 90s, and it was one of my morning routines when I first started going to school, and ever since then it's always left an impact on me. Regardless of if the show is of actual quality or if it provides entertainment, it provides a certain something that we all cherish, that little unnamed thing and certification that no matter how bleak the earth gets, there's always a little bit of fun and hope in the world that can be found. Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Marcy, Peppermint Patty, Linus, Woodstock, and the whole gang are just really endearing characters, and despite their old voice actors may have been phoning it in a little bit, and the animation was quite simplistic, it had a special charm to it that can never be matched, and with the new movie from Blue Sky proving that even in the modern day that same charm is still going strong, we need that magic from Charles Schulz, the creator, to be brought back into the new generation. Away from all the iPads, emojis, Tinders, Trumps and Kindles, we need to be reminded of a simpler place and time, and it's exactly what Peanuts can bring us. In many ways I feel like this show's placement in the modern day is almost kind of like Linus's safety blanket. It may not do much in the grand scheme of things, and it's rather low tech and simple, but it's always there for us, and it can always make us feel better. Though I do wonder if he still held on to that in his adult years. It's kind of like a metaphor for nerds like me who hold on to these old shows without letting them go. Which is what I've mostly been doing on my channel for the last 5 years. Am I just a real-life version of Linus? Well, anyway, I still think we need this show back, if just for the great Woodstock and the charismatic Snoopy. And really, who could not love those great Red Baron little sketches that he used to do? Hopefully you guys also remember these shows and agree that they should be brought back into the modern day. And if you think there's even more that should be brought back, feel free to leave them in the comment section or on the Headphones UK Facebook page. But now, I've had enough of this. I'm going on the other side to have a bath. Bye! Hey guys, me here. I'm just going to address some questions before the credits that I'm sure you guys have had. So, if you're wondering why I've been wearing a hat in this video, it's because I've been losing more and more hair by the day, and it's hard to cover this up unless I'm wearing a hat. So, there you go. And if you're wondering why I've let my beard grow through, well, if I'm losing hair on the top of my head, I might as well compensate with one on the bottom of my head. So, there you go. As for the cane, yes, I'm hoping to use this in more videos because, I mean, come on, it's basically perfect for my videos, and how could I not use this more often? If you're wondering why I haven't been making more updates of late on the YouTube channel, it's because I've been still working on the movie Deadweight, which has been coming along very well. If you've been paying attention to the Deadweight Facebook page, you'll know that I finished filming not too long ago, and I've also just been doing editing. I've just finished the first draft at the moment, which I've been sent off to do the soundtrack and the animation for it, so that's coming along very well, and it should be done relatively soon. After that's finished, I should hope to be doing more videos on my YouTube channel like I used to do, but there's definitely been a lot of interest in my older videos, so clearly you guys haven't had too much of a problem with it. But even so, I want to be able to make my regular updates as much as I can, because you guys deserve to have more than just my old stuff. But I hope you've enjoyed this new video, and I'll be making more as soon as I finish Deadweight. And until then, bye.